Welcome to the neighborhood again, everybody. So we're sitting here looking at this May Day protest now. Take a peek at this.
Hey, get ready for thousands of May Day protesters across the country happening today as more and more Democrats are embracing the far left. Organizers nationwide urging you to skip school, skip work, skip shopping, skip all of it. Nearly 500 groups planning more.
Skip it all. Just keep skipping. So we can go out here and do what? Practice more skipping? Where are we going to get ahead in this? Doesn't make any sense. Now they want to throw the children into it. Kids as young as preschool out here in this. This is not what we need to be doing.
More than 750 events across the country. We're keeping a close eye on the biggest rallies expected in New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, and of course, Minneapolis. I'm Aisha Hasni in for Harris Bacher today.
Minneapolis. Yeah, we knew that. Of course.
Today, organizers are putting their progressive message front and center on this Friday, and they say they want to see higher taxes on the rich. Tax the rich, ICE abolished, and wars opposed. Those are some of the rallying cries behind today's protests that our critics are now saying are flat out un-American.
I'll tell you, un-American. It's taking someone else's children out to fight a protest that they don't have any rights being in. First of all, if you can't vote, you don't need to be in the protest. That's key number one. So that eliminates all children in school. That eliminates anyone under 18. That eliminates illegal immigrants. That eliminates immigrants that may not even have an ID. That eliminates a lot of things that doesn't need to be in there in the first place. What are we going to do next year? Give kindergartners the right to vote in the elections? I mean, how far are we going to take this? This is ridiculous. And then we've got the tax the rich. Well, where do you think that money's going to come from? How do you think the rich get money? By making a product or a service or a company, and we get charged whatever makes them rich. Okay, so if they can't make their bottom line, they are not going to lose. They're just going to either, one, they're going to raise the price, or they're going to close up shop and go somewhere else. If they close up shop and go somewhere else, we still lose. We lose the tax money and we lose the jobs. So that's just kind of stupid, tax the rich more. Well, they can only be taxed so far, just like each one of us can only be taxed so far. And you got the no ICE, no war. Well, I'm sorry. Kiss my ass. ICE. All day long. We need more ICE here. We need to clean this country out and see what we've got left as far as jobs versus true Americans. Not wannabe Americans, not I've been here for 30 years and I've never gotten off my visa yet, or I've just been living here for 30 years and just never followed through and became an American. Well, that's not pledging allegiance to anybody except yourself. So sorry, get out. In the no war, whatever. We're doing what we got to do. Nobody ever does a war just because we're bored. Nobody's bored. Trust me, nobody is bored. Now, the people that are bored are the ones sitting around doing the protesting because they're just bitching. They're not actually doing anything. They're not offering better solutions. They're not fighting for better solutions. They're fighting for their total control, and all Republicans must stand down and bend the knee. We don't bend the knee. That's the problem. They're going to keep trying to get the Republican Party to bend the knee. Well, that's not what we do. We're Americans. We don't bend the knee to anybody. And if you're completely in the wrong like this Democratic Party is, then you got to start bending your knee because you are in the wrong. America is not founded on illegal immigrants running all over the place and pushing our school children out in the streets to protest something that has nothing to do with them. You know, you want to talk about democracy? Well, get your ass back in the classrooms. All right? These teachers are ridiculous. If you don't like the job because you can't make enough money, well, I'm sorry. You know, a lot of us are out here at a job sometimes that we can't make the right money that we'd like to have. We either quit and move on to something else, or we do what we love and we grin and bear it. It's time to grow up. It really is. It's time to grow up. The teachers are acting more childish than the actual students that they're pushing out there and brainwashing.
So these May Day walkouts and staffing issues are disrupting schools, our kids' educations, especially in blue states and cities like Madison, Wisconsin, like Chicago. Out in North Carolina, more than 20 districts are affected by these protests. One Wisconsin mom says this is more than just a day off.
I'm in shock, although maybe I shouldn't be considering the history of the Madison Metropolitan School District, but they are turning schools into political staging grounds, and this is where they've crossed the line. They are not just indoctrinating the kids in the classroom, they are encouraging actively for students to leave the classroom and go march in the streets with teachers, with administrators.
The Chicago Teachers Union already pushing for a full day off for students. Here is the message that I put out there, quote, "We are not living through ordinary times." His agents are tear gassing our neighborhoods. They're talking about Donald Trump. Our students have something to say, and we as educators have a responsibility to speak up and support them in finding their voice.
Finding the kid's voice. The kid needs to learn how to add 2 plus 2 first. Write a complete sentence. Speak proper English, not these sideline programs like, ooh, you got to have 2 years of Spanish and all that shit. No. You know, first, English, math, reading, and writing. That is it. If you can't pass those 4 subjects, you don't get an extra class for something crazy. You don't go out and shove the kids out into protesting like this. This is ridiculous. You only have a protest if you really mean business. You know, and what does a 5-year-old mean business about? The 5-year-old would like to go out and have an extra 15 minutes of recess. You know, they'd like to play with the other kids. They don't want to go out here to this crap. This is indoctrination of the highest level. It is ridiculous. And I don't care. It's not right. And they don't belong where they're shoving them right now. And the bad thing is this is big. A lot of places are doing this because they think they can get their way. They think they can push and indoctrinate almost anything now on the kids because parents aren't fighting back. If you're a parent and you're allowing your child to go out here into this May Day thing, you really need to check yourself. You really need to check yourself. A 5-year-old does not belong out there. No kid in school that should be in school belongs in a protest. Period. Just wanted everybody to take a look at this. So students are only 43% proficient in math, 27% in reading. How are we ever going to move ahead in this country with math and reading that low? You know, we're competing against other countries with at least what they say, you know, like 80 and 90% proficient in math and reading. This is a breeding situation that's got to be stopped. You know, we're pushing this low IQ as if it's something to be proud of. That's not pride right there. That's scary. That's what that is. That's truly, truly scary. I hate to see that.
Our senior correspondent Mike Tobin is in Chicago waiting for these protests to kick off. Hi, Mike.
And this is where it's going to start, Aisha. You can see some people are showing up already with pop-up tents and some of their pickets that they're going to carry through these demonstrations, ultimately marching into Chicago's Loop. It's a big day for the American left, advocating everything from the Democratic Party to socialism. You got some 600 groups, including communists, with a $2 billion budget that are funding some 3,000 protests. Now, here in Chicago, the very powerful Chicago Teachers Union had
Wonder where this
advocated
$2 billion's
for the day
coming
off
from.
of school so the students could attend these rallies. The superintendents of schools shut that down, but struck a compromise to provide school buses at the end of the day so the students could attend these rallies.
You are tax
This is
dollars,
just a
by
move
the
of
way.
The political left, and the unions are really a political party. They're a left-wing political party in Chicago and other major cities.
It's absolutely absurd, and it really speaks to the distraction that the teachers union is bringing into classrooms. This really amounts to a state-sponsored protest at the end of the day.
Now, acknowledging that 1 out of 5 CPS 8th graders
Look at
can
this,
read at
just
grade
little
level.
kids.
4th graders, you've got 1 out of 4
Little
that
kids.
are up to speed across all of the curriculum. The
Sad.
students were in school today, but the curriculum was changed. According to Channel 5, the curriculum includes social justice and transgender rights classes all the way.
Yeah, this is what we need. Social justice. Okay, remember, this is for all classes. This isn't for just, like, okay, 12th grade. They're doing this exact stuff as you see right here. Justice, transgender rights, and protest in preschool. Preschool. Parents, you got to pay attention out there. I mean, if you're being bombarded thinking this is something other than what it is, you're being misled.
Down to kindergarten level. Now, here at Union Park, where it's supposed to get started, we don't really have any crowds started yet, but wait till school gets out and the buses start rolling. Aisha?
Okay, Mike Tobin live for us in Chicago. Mike, thank you very much. Here at Fox News, we've been doing some deep researching, and it reveals that the size and scope of the organizing power behind today's May Day protests, about 600 groups with a combined annual revenue, $2 billion involved in all of this. And that includes the Democratic Socialists of America. They're pumping money into it, along with the People's Forum, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, Answer Coalition,
Communism,
and Code Pink. We've all seen those protesters on Capitol Hill. Now, some of those have ties to communist China. The economic cost of their calls for no school, no work, no shopping could total somewhere between $2 billion. Want to bring in Ari Fleischer. He is a former White House press secretary and a Fox News contributor. One of the points that we have made on this network is that the Chicago Teachers Union, they wanted to shut down the entire day of school. In the meantime, the kids, they're not learning anything right now. I think 43% of students are at grade proficiency.
Well, they're learning all right.
In math, Ari. 27%
Learning how to
proficient in
adjust
reading.
themselves for welfare.
Why are these people so focused on teaching these kids social justice rather than math and reading and writing?
Yeah, there are two elements here. The ideological component about the trend of the Democratic Party to the left, left, left is one, and that's bad enough. Nothing is worse, though, than political indoctrination in our schools. Schools should have absolutely nothing to do with any political cause, left, right, or center. It is not the purpose of us sending our children to a school. Our students, our children, need to be educated in the essentials to get by in life, and that is not a political advocacy position. So this, what I hope happens next is just like in COVID, when there was a grassroots rebellion and parents started to take over school boards, that needs to happen in any one of these places. This is not an issue just of merely left and right. This is an issue of, are we raising our children well? And there needs to be a grassroots rebellion against these schools.
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, he hit it right there. You got to get in the classrooms and find out what's going on in there. Just because you think it's okay, or your kid told you it's okay, the kid doesn't know what's okay yet. Even clear up into teens, they don't know what's okay yet. I mean, teenagers have a baby all the time. That's not okay, but they thought it was okay. So seriously, pull your mind down to the level of your child, at least as far as, where they've been and what they've done in life. They're not like you. They haven't seen all there is to see, at least as far as, basic living skills, basic politicians that can, do what they do to your mind like this. This is complete and total way for the Democratic Party to go ahead and raise the next generation into what they were trying to get with these illegal. I'm sorry. With what they're trying to get these illegals in here for, they're just going to go ahead and raise them from your children. They want them dumb, they want them stupid, and they want them very, very needy. So they will vote. They will vote exactly for the injustice that Democrats make to begin with. And you got to admit, everything that's been happening has been manufactured from the Democratic Party so far. Open border? Wasn't Republican. Not pointing the finger here, but it is what it is. So blue cities? Problem? Yes, very much so. So we got to get the parents in here. They got to get in here. If you don't like what you're seeing, pull your children, start learning how to homeschool these kids so you can at least get somewhat of a basic level of education for them. Maybe the best you could do was, a little bit of algebra. Well, that's a lot further than they're going to get with this situation. Right now, the way we're looking at it, they're not going to get anything except for a bunch of Antifas. That's it. That's all they want to raise. Just dumb, uneducated voters. That's what they want. That way they will believe anything that they're told because they don't know what can be. They don't understand, how good it used to be in America. They just see it as, well, I've got to do this. I'm going to pay some rich guy and my life's going to be nothing. And that's all the Democratic Party is teaching these kids right now. And that's sad. That's very, very sad because this is one of the only countries in the world. It is the only country in the world, basically, where you can start out as a child and you could grow up to actually run the country, depending on your want of this situation. It doesn't mean that everybody is granted the right to be a president, but or anywhere high up in this country, owner of Amazon, running the Fox News network, or anything. You could be anything you want in this country. It's much easier, though, to just be a 42%er, which is ridiculous. And these teachers are allowing this. They are allowing this. And it's, as you can see by all the yellow dots here on the map, it's not just Minnesota this time. Look at all that dumbness going on out there. Look at the IQ just dropping. Ridiculous.
Okay, as an immigrant, I often look at this country as a land of opportunity. It is a matter of fact that there are millions of people from around the world that come to this country for opportunity, for education, to get ahead. This is where you can make it happen. So why would you want to push on our kids that we're going to punish you if you get rich? If you actually make it, if you make $1 million, you become a billionaire, we're going to punish you. We don't like that. I want to know, do parents have a say? They want to shut down these schools. They want to indoctrinate these kids. Do parents have a say in all of this? Do they get to push back?
We saw that in COVID. Parents
Absolutely.
did have a say. They did push back, and it changed school boards. It changed curricula. It changed the way teachers had to interact with their children. But because of the power of the union and the left-wing ideology that's prevalent throughout the Democratic Party, given them the choice of what to educate our children in, their knee will jerk right back into liberal political indoctrination, as we saw during COVID, and now as we see it in these examples of giving people off on May 1st. No one should get off on May 1st. May 1st was a communist invention, this holiday. And why are we trying to emulate any of it in America? We should not. It was a socialist holiday. It became a communist holiday.
This is not a socialist country.
Nothing to do with it. And any school that engages in this This is the death spiral of intellectualism. This is the death spiral of teaching. Is it any wonder our children have so much of a struggle to
Right.
read, to write, to do math, to do the essentials that allow them to be successful citizens? It's because our schools are failing. And this is a perfect example.
And you wonder where the moderate Democrats are in all of this, too. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the program. Meantime, I want to turn to this. The fight over congressional maps raging big time after a big Supreme Court opinion on districts drawn along race-based lines in Louisiana. Democrats are now warning that they may actually answer Republican redraws with new blue state maps of their own. Democrats are looking at new maps in New York, Illinois, Maryland, and Colorado. And Republican-led states are moving too. Just mentioned Louisiana. There's Georgia too, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and of course Florida, the Sunshine State, all part of this new redistricting push. President Trump spoke with Tennessee's governor, who says he is willing to rework that state's maps, potentially adding another GOP seat there. And Florida could be the biggest prizes in this map fight. On the left, you can see.
Yeah, it reminds me of something. Swing states, Ohio and Florida. Remember that? I don't know if anybody listening at this moment would remember that, but some will. It was always a swing state. Well, okay, maybe you could go by geographical area of people, but why? That always bothered me, because it's like, okay, so you can get so many this and that. How about we just stop with the congressional map stuff? You know, give a state the status of a city, period. If it has 100,000 people, you know, one representative or two, you know, one of each. If it's you know, if it's got, you know, 500,000 people, then the whole entire state, okay, you get 2 and 2, and we can vote on the 5th, you know, as a state. You know, we don't need all this district map crap. As they've proven, it's more racist than it is anything. You know, and where it's not racist, it's more demographic than anything. It's going by, you know, Hispanic or you know, the big up and coming thing now is Muslims. You know, they can pretty much take over a whole state just because they got, you know, some squiggly line going up through there that gives them, you know, this kind of power. They shouldn't have this kind of power. It should be the power of a state, period. You know, what is the big deal anyway? Because the major laws that count are from federal. You know, yeah, you've got some small little rules and stuff, but, you know, that really does need to go away anyway. The little city-state law rules, that most of it needs to go away, because all it's doing is causing argument, you know. Just like these blue states, when they get into them, like, how come I can go to a red state, you know, and I could, you know, steal a car, I don't know, value 10,000, whatever you want to say it, go over to a red state and I do 10 years in jail. I go over to a blue state and they give me 10 hours in jail. And that's it. There's got to be a level of equality across all rules. Basic, kind of rules, you know. There can't just be this I walked across the border and all of a sudden, you know, I'm a different set of rules entirely. You know, there's got to be at least a basic that you can go from one state to the other. You know, you don't kill in this state and you don't kill in this state. It can't be, well, you can't kill in this state, but you go to the next state and, you know, you're a foreigner. It's okay. You know, I understand in your country, you know, you had to go kill and rape all the time. So we're just going to let you off with a slap on the wrist here. And that's bullshit. 100% bullshit. This is America. You don't do that shit here. You hop yourself on a little flight and you get the fuck out. Period. Goodbye. We got enough things to worry about with actual Americans here, let alone these third worlders coming in here.
congressional districts in place right now. That's the current map. On the right, you see the proposed map. The change would make an already red state even tougher for Democrats with fewer blue districts and more Republican-friendly territory. And Governor Ron DeSantis says Florida is ready to move quickly. Here he is.
Florida today is not the same Florida of 2020. We've netted 2 million people.
Right.
We've had a massive change in demography, and so these lines are compact districts. If you look at the map, it's visually appealing. It's not like the Virginia one, but it does reflect the fact that we have had explosive growth in parts of our state.
So Republicans are fighting back, Democrats' efforts to change the maps and increase their majority. They're taking back the majority.
Yeah, you notice she corrected taking back because it has been stolen. If you understood that the fact that how long has Iran been in their situation with this regime, they've been in this thing for 50 years, and it just so happens that about 50 years ago, shit started shifting just a bit, year by year, bluer and bluer and bluer, more bullcrap every day, added stress, added fees, added taxes, added everything. You can't even get a job now without a cell phone. You have to have a cell phone. They won't hire you. Very few people would hire you without a cell phone. It's just not a common thing. So, everything keeps getting pushed further and further, but nobody gives. So, this is just part of the examples of what's going on in this country. Another reason why a 5-year-old doesn't need to go to a protest. There's stuff out here that adults are not sure if they understand it fully sometimes, especially with us being in a mess for 50 years. They don't understand what a terrorist mindset is. But if the Democrats keep making these little 47%ers, I'll tell you, it's we're gonna be top on the list on the third world countries. That's pretty much about the best we'll get.
Well, where does this all end, Ari? Because there are Republicans on Capitol Hill that are wondering, maybe we shouldn't have started this fight in the first place. This is kind of getting out of control.
Hell with
You have
that.
to separate the two issues that are driving this. One is merit-based. One is complying with the Supreme Court ruling that came out this week that says you cannot draw districts on the basis of race. You cannot draw a district to
right.
reward one race or
American
another.
is an American,
Voters should
period.
be able to choose their representative. The second is a power grab. And it's a power grab as old as the Republic. There's nothing wrong with a gerrymander. Lines do have to be drawn every 10 years to match what the census says about where populations are. And that's always been a power grab, but it's until recent.
But why does it need to be a power grab? That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be this district, that district, that district. That's more lines and more separation of Americans right there. Look at that map. That's what the Democrats carved out in the center there. If we just voted on whether or not Louisiana went Democrat or Republican, who cares? I'm looking for the best candidate. I don't care if it is a Democrat. If that's the best candidate, that's the one that we need. I mean, to sit here and say that, this little squiggly bullshit here gets more votes than the rest of the state is ridiculous. I don't care. If you do it by the whole entire demographic, all the way around this nice little L here, you just do it as Louisiana. Who was the majority vote for? And that's what you go with. And let's color it purple. Let's stop this red and blue shit that divides us. We are all American. Just color it purple. Be done. We don't need all these 6 districts for little Louisiana here. This is ridiculous. And look at what it causes. It allows this sort of cheating crap to happen. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't make them any stronger than than area number 1 over here in Louisiana. Should be the same exact weight. It's 100,000 people versus 50,000 people maybe, and I know these numbers are off, but it might be 1 million people in number 6, and maybe there's only 1 million people. Oh wow. 1 million people in number 6 and maybe 500,000 in number 1. It doesn't matter. That's Louisiana. I don't care what number 6 voted. I care what Louisiana voted.
It's only happened once every 10 years. Now, as a New Yorker, someone who's lived there for more than 40 years, New York is always the worst. New York is the one who tries to redraw the line almost every 2 years.
Oh boy, should I get started on this one? No, I'll let him talk, sorry.
To squeeze out Republicans. That's the modern history of New York. New York started this last cycle, and then North Carolina matched New York, and it was a wash. This cycle, the 2026 election, Texas went first, and now Katie barred the door. I lament this, Aisha, because we cannot be drawing lines every 2 years to temporarily advantage one party or another party. There have got to be rules to politics. It cannot be war all the time by both parties.
There's something that kind of draws me, again, back to the same statement. Why do we need parties in the first place? There's right and wrong, and if it's wrong, goodbye. I mean, seriously, death penalty. Let the whole entire United States vote on what the death penalty should be, and anybody that says there should be no death penalty, well, you can just go. I'm sorry. Eye for an eye, it says that in the Bible, period. So there's none of this, craziness. Just vote for it, be done. That's the law, and we're moving forward. All this little tiny slivers of Democratic this and that, and here's a Republican area, and we don't need to be divided like that. State, 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 and that's it. Just get rid of all this electoral college and all that. The vote is the vote. Period.
Both parties point fingers at each other. So nobody wins. Nobody wins because this is just power grabs.
Nobody wins.
And that's the real problem with it. We have to comply with the Supreme Court order. That is the right decision. It ends discrimination. Hurrah. We don't have to engage in every 2 years the parties maneuvering against each other just for the sake of grabbing power.
Okay, well, we'll watch Louisiana
should have that kind of power.
Because the election there, the House
it's too much
races
power
have now
for
been
them.
Suspended, so we'll see if they can redraw the maps.
Both sides.
Ari Fleischer, great to have you. Have a great weekend.
The more they divide, the more we're divided. That's why it needs to be right and wrong. Okay, this is the right way and this is the wrong way. Which one are we voting for? And just leave it at that, There's too many lines in the sand as far as rules go all the time. Well, but if. You don't need that many decision trees. Just what is right, Like if you take an example of, this guy killed this woman and there's nothing that we can do to prove that he didn't. Okay. It's time for you to do what was voted on. What was voted on was for you to face the electric chair. And that's it. There's, that's just one example of 10 million that I could sit here and burn up the YouTube time. But, there's right and there's wrong. And people really do, deep down inside, if they're honest with themselves before speaking, they know what's right. They know what's wrong. I mean, our military is based off of that, right and wrong. We should at least be to the point of understanding right and wrong. There's many cases of right and wrong, and dividing up a state into 16 different sections into some kind of way that keeps maneuvering and moving all the time, all that does is divide the state. We're already divided into 50. We don't need to be divided into 1,050. Then you've got 1 million different sides fighting. Right now, we've got blue states. What is a blue state? What the hell is that? That's ridiculous. Blue state. You know, it's just frustrating watching all this, because this isn't how our country was founded. To be sitting here drawing different lines all the time and having two powers of government constantly battling and using 5-year-olds as pawns in this crazy chess game that we're stuck in here. And it really needs to stop. It really does need to stop. And I'm hoping that parents are listening to this and watching this, because, you know, preschoolers, what makes you think they wouldn't do it to a 5th grader? You know, there's a million signs that you can find out if your teacher is woke. There's too many signs out there. All you have to do is have a 5-minute conversation, if you can stand it, and you'll find out whether or not that's the type of teacher that's going to send a 5-year-old out to battle. Well, I've ranted enough, so thank you guys if you've listened this long. I would definitely appreciate you clicking on to the next video. I'm still working out whether or not I'm going to go AI voice or my natural voice, so if you want to let me know in the comments. I don't care if you say in the comments you suck. That's cool. If I get enough of those, then I'll go all AI voice. And if you like my voice, that's fine, and then I'll start jumping away from the AI voice, and you'll get the raw, crazy me. Just an American born in this country, raised in this country, 2, 3, 4 generations back in this country as immigrants, not illegal immigrants. There's a difference, everybody. Good night.